Kobe started his career like an undrafted signing. He started his career like Austin Reeves. And to become the player that he became, you know what I'm saying, Gilbert has a point.
But coming in as a rookie and saying, man, if I knew shit was going to be like this, I would have went to school.
When it comes to, you know, that conversation of the GOATs, right, where you say you have them second.
Yeah.
As players, we try to understand what is the criteria that is being used, because usually the players, top five, very different from medias.
Okay. And that's fair.
And we try to understand what is the criteria for you guys, because obviously it's very different from us, because we're in the Lions Den, so we know who is better than who. We gauge the value of the team, the players, versus their success. So we know, like, okay, you have this team. We know you don't supposed to win. We're tripling you.
Right.
How are you performing?
Right.
Right. So we gauge stuff like that. That's why our list is a little different. So, you know, for the most part, what is the criteria that media is being used, or
I don't know.
using?
I think.
All right, let me chime in real quick. What it is, what it do. Welcome back to my channel, Capital J. Today we doing a video. They got Stephen A. Gil's Arena. They got Stephen A. on the show, and they're talking about a variety. But I just happen to catch this specific clip, so we gonna talk about it. What they're actually talking about in the video is what's the criteria on, as Gil just said, what's the criteria? Because when players list their top five, there's different criteria as to why those players are in their top five, and then when the media does it, the top fives are always different because the criteria are different. In my opinion, real quick, I believe that players know better. Players' answers on their top five, or who's this, who's that, is a little more appropriate than media, specifically because they were on a court playing against these guys. So I personally believe that when any player is on a show and they're talking about who's good and who's great and who's not that they're discussing players that are not great, but when they're just trying to justify why this player is better than this player versus a journalist, I personally take the player's opinion more because they actually played the game. It's not a knock against journalism. It's just that there's something to be said when you actually performed in the profession. So that's just me, but let's get back to the video.
A legitimate question, and I don't think there's one definitive answer to that, to be in fairness to you. And I think that one of the great things about this podcast is that no matter how we feel, when y'all open y'all mouth and y'all start talking basketball, and I got to give Kenyon love for this too, because Kenyon's always been a serious brother. He means what he says, and he says what he means. And even if he's wrong, it comes from an edified place. He ain't speaking ignorantly. He's making points. It's just that sometimes you agree or you don't agree with him. But he's a rough rider, and I got mad respect for him. I think it's important to understand that when we look at Jordan, for example, we look at 6 finals, 6 MVPs, unblemished in that championship round, never allowing a Game 7 to take place. We've seen in one pressurized moment after another where he answered the call. We look at Kobe. He's a 5-time champion. You have a lot of people out there that put him ahead of LeBron because of that. I think Kobe was a killer, God rest his soul. The brother he'd be somebody that he'd give it to you. And not to say that he didn't play defense, because obviously, you know, in his prime, he was an elite defender. The flip side to it, however, is that when you're playing with Shaq and the rest of the crew, and then ultimately Gasol and Bynum and the rest of the crew, you had a crew. When you struggled, you really, really struggled. That was never LeBron. See, when you look at LeBron took that team to the finals, and then you get swept by San Antonio. But you saw what he did. Everywhere he's been, teams have elevated. So you can't take that away from him, because he's 6'9", he's 260, because he could play inside and out, because he can be, you know, lethal in the open court, because he could step things up defensively, because of so many things that he brought to his arsenal, and how he would create mismatches, which I think is one of the things that he's done better than most. You look at him along with the 4 championships and what have you, and you say you can't take that away from him, because as bad as the Lakers were as they descended, right, in Kobe's final few years there, would that have ever happened with LeBron? The answer is no. With LeBron James, no team would have been as bad as the Lakers were at one point. So you take that into consideration as well. You think about all of those things. And then you look at a Bill Russell, for example. Yeah, different time, 11 championships, 13 years, you get all of that. But in the same breath, he was a defender and a rebounder, but far from an offensive juggernaut. You look at a guy like Wilt Chamberlain, who arguably the most unstoppable big man in the history of basketball. But I'm looking at your number one nemesis, which was Bill Russell, and he outnumbered you 11-2 in titles.
I don't like that argument, and I knew exactly that's where he was going when he said Bill Russell and then said Wilt Chamberlain right after that. Reason why I don't like that argument is because back then the NBA, the NBA, ABA, they only had 8 teams. And there was no free agency, there was no trade market. So whatever team you had, that was a team you had until the players retired. That was the only team they played for. And the Boston Celtics, if you go back, because it's recorded history, if you go back, the Celtics, they had John Havlicek, which was the leading scorer on the team for a number of years. They had Casey Jones, and they had Bill Russell. Whereas Wilt Chamberlain, it was literally only Wilt Chamberlain. Can't nobody name me teammates on Wilt Chamberlain's team when he played the Celtics. Can't nobody do that. So and at that time too, the players that I named, John Havlicek and Casey Jones and Bill Russell, all those guys are Hall of Famers. So I really don't like that Wilt Chamberlain versus Bill Russell argument. It is clear that Wilt Chamberlain in the 60s was by far the best player in the league, but the Celtics were the best team in the league. And I had this conversation where the stacked team always wins against a team that has a player that is head and shoulders above the rest of his teammates. It is what it is. I hate that argument.
Plus, you had quit in an NBA Finals game in the eyes of a lot of spectators. So you got that going on. I'm looking at Jerry West, God rest his soul, the silhouette, where you won 1 title with 9 tries. You see what I'm saying? I'm looking at that. I'm looking at Tim Duncan, the 5 titles. Yeah, but it was Popovich. Yeah, you Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker and the crew. But you know what? You got the Lakers a couple of times. They got you a few times. Not quite the same. The Diesel, Shaq, dominant. But a big man that played bully ball but struggled at the free throw line with 52% shooting from the free throw line, et cetera, et cetera. You got those things. There's so many different things that go at. Tracy McGrady was big time. T-Mac was no joke. But you got the title when it didn't matter. When you were in your prime, certainly Grant Hill getting hurt didn't help in Orlando. It's not your fault. We know that you had those requisite skills. But what will forever be held against?
What ring did T-Mac get? I got to do research on it because I'm unaware that T-Mac won a ring. And if he is mistakenly referring to the 2013 San Antonio Spurs, the team that T-Mac was on, the Spurs didn't win the championship that year. They lost in Game 7. Spurs went back and won the following year. T-Mac wasn't on that team. If I might be mistaken, but I don't remember a ring that T-Mac won.
It was not only the absence of titles, but you were up 3-1 on Detroit. And basically said the series was over. And Chauncey and them brothers came back on you. I'm just saying. I'm not talking about, I'm not saying it was his fault. I'm saying his words before the series was over. You know what I'm saying? I mean, one of the things we marvel about when we talk about Kobe was that social media hit with Iman Shumpert was playing for the Knicks, and he talked about how he was going up against the Lakers and Kobe came up to him and said, "You had a really good game." Pat him on the back. "You had a really good game." And then Kobe in the 4th went berserk. So, you know, you marvel at shit like that because you sitting there and you like this, all right, you talking some shit, you know, and then you see somebody like yourself, you know, it's Agent Zero, and then you dropping 60 on somebody. That shit matters. And so you think about those moments, and then you go back to LeBron and his greatness, and you say, yeah, it's there, it's legit. But we do remember the finals against the Mavs. We do remember that you struggled in the 4th quarter of 4 consecutive games. We do remember that J.J. Barea and Jason Terry were guarding your ass, and you didn't do something about it.
2 excellent defenders.
Well, no. So I'm just saying that you look at something like that. That don't stop you from being number 2, but it'll stop you from being number 1 because you know what Jordan would have done because Jordan did it. So those kind of things, again, it's all debatable in people's eyes, but not to me when it comes to Jordan. And then they say, well, why not Kobe, you know, with Jordan? I said, because Kobe idolized, and practically it was the greatest imitation of Michael Jordan we may have ever seen in terms of style, right? Still came up 1 title short. Still got beat up in the NBA Finals twice. You remember that. And so it's like, you're up there, you're great, but who you aspired to be, you never caught nor eclipsed. And that's how you look at it. So you come to the conclusions for a variety of reasons. But my thing is, I'm not disrespecting you. We're having a conversation about the greatest. You're in the conversation. There's no reason to feel disrespected. It's just a matter of whatever somebody's opinion is.
And also what he's saying is there's no reason to feel disrespected because somebody called you the second greatest player ever. Because if anybody knows, if anybody follows ESPN or anything of that nature, Stephen A has mentioned on his show that he called LeBron the second greatest player ever, and Rich Paul approached him and said that, yeah, that's an insult. So that's what he's talking about.
Was it Kobe? I don't think anybody ever considers the start of it, right? When you're talking about top 10, top 5, top 20, shit, probably top 30, he's the only player that came off the bench 2 years.
Yeah.
So nobody realizes how great he had to become from where he started.
That's fair.
That should be factored in.
And yes, this is Gil's interpretation of why Kobe is where he's at in his top 5, and he's just pointing out his justification. Like, listen, there's no player outside of Kobe that came off the bench and became as great as he is. That, you know, he's the only player that's like that. Everybody, as they're gonna mention, everybody else pretty much the top 30 players, pretty much when they got drafted, they were handed the keys.
Well, when you're talking about the top 20, they were given the keys as this is your team.
Well, not Steph.
Yeah, Steph was a starter. Steph averaged like 18 his first year.
Started his rookie year.
Steph started his rookie year next to Monty Ellis.
How many games? Yeah, he started majority of his first games.
I think towards the end, but I'm saying.
But this is literally off the bench 2 years straight. Off
About
the bench.
Kobe?
Yeah.
First 2 years.
Off the bench.
Yeah.
Like
2 years?
Off the bench. Like,
You know, Eddie
period.
Jones was there.
Yeah. Steph started 77.
Nick Van Axel, Eddie Jones, they were just players ahead of him in the depth chart as a rookie. So he came off the bench, and then also Kobe mentioned, if y'all watched the All the Smoke episode where Kobe himself mentioned,
At the beginning of the journey was not playing. So coming in as a rookie and saying, man, if I knew this shit was gonna be like this, I would have went to school.
Interesting.
Right? Because I felt like my coach, Dale Harris at the time, was trying to make sure he did not show favoritism to the young kid. And as a result, he swung completely the opposite direction and doing things that weren't really fair. And I mean, not playing. You know, so like my first 2-3 years were nightmares.
And people don't know that. People don't know that. People don't know you went through that your first 3 years.
No, it was tough. I mean, I sit around, I watch all my peers going out there playing 35, 37 minutes. You know, AI, Ray Allen, they're all doing their thing. Sharif Abdul-Rahim, everybody's doing their thing. And I'm sitting here glued to the bench, getting really, really pissed off and ticked off, thinking I should have just gone to college. I mean, that was the hardest part.
Yeah, 77. Yeah. Kobe, like, he had one start, right? In 2 years? Right? So, like, to start off like that to then become who you became, that should be, you know.
Kobe started his career like an undrafted signing. He started his career like Austin Reeves, to keep it a stack with you. And to become the player that he became, you know what I'm saying? Gilbert has a point, just like Stephen A had his point. These are all valid points.
Kind of factored in just a little bit.
Yeah.
When it comes to the T-Mac on that part, and I go back,
Seven
And I love T-Mac, one of my all-time favorites.
7 starts in his first season.
I look at it like this. You guys were up 3-1, but you lost, right? And we're laughing because you lost. Technically, y'all were supposed to get swept. So we have to factor in that you won 3 games that you didn't supposed to win. Because it was a one versus 8 seed. I look at it like that. If we saying you're supposed to get 4-0 and you did get 3 wins, it's still 3 wins.
Right. But you have to remember, and this is fairness to you because you're a basketball aficionado. So when you bring this up, basically you're saying these conversations should be left to the basketball aficionados, which I respect. Because you're right. Because most people don't remember they were supposed to get swept. Most people don't remember that. They don't remember you didn't have Grant Hill. You were carrying Orlando on your back single-handedly, and the Detroit Pistons were en route to winning the title, and here you are standing in their way. But what they do remember is that you said the series was over.
Yeah.
You know, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact wording of his quote right now. But he said the series was over after they were up 3-1. He was basically saying, man, it'd be good to advance to the next round. And, you know, you were talking like that. So cats gonna remember that. They're gonna remember that because you T-Mac and you had that kind of game. And and you can look at it, the fact that they were supposed to get swept, or you can look at it this way. You T-Mac, if you were good enough to win 3, how come you didn't get 4? See what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, you can look at it that way too.
So we're gonna end the video right there. Listen, Stephen A. I know a lot of people, for whatever reason, they don't like Stephen A. They don't. I don't know why. Stephen A. is what got me watching commentary sports. First Take. You know, I ventured out and watched different shows and stuff like that. You know, just so that I could get further knowledge on the game, because everybody that talks about the sports, if they're hired to talk about it, they're qualified to talk about it. Stephen A. has been covering the game, as we know, for 30 years. They both have solid points. And the question in the beginning of the video was, what's the criteria? Because there's always discrepancies between former NBA players saying who the top 5 player is, and then journalists saying who the top 5 player is. And they both just explained the things that they consider when they make their list. You know what I mean? So it depends on what side of the spectrum you on. Now, me personally, me and you, we never played in the league, right? But we still are able to interpret different things, and it factors into why certain players are in the top 5, why certain players are in the top 10, or why the list is different. You know what I'm saying? And everyone has a valid point for the most part. If you're intelligent, everyone has a valid point. But this is always going to be a thing when we have these discussions about great players across any sport. You know what I'm saying? Because there's going to be things that we value that's going to shape our list. You know what I mean? Drop down a comment section if you disagree with Stephen A. Gil Arenas. Just drop down anything. Say whatever it is you feel. I'm on the road to 500 subscribers. Like, comment, subscribe. If you like my videos, stay tuned. I got 2 videos at the end. Peace.